I've never been one to scare easily. Growing up in Alton, a sleepy little countryside town in England, there wasn't much to do. The place didn't offer kids like me anything exciting. No arcades, no bustling streets, just endless fields and quiet lanes. So, naturally, we made our own fun, often the kind our parents wouldn't approve of. Sneaking out, pulling pranks, exploring places we shouldn't. It was all part of growing up there. I was a rebellious sort, always up for a dare, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that weekend. It shook me up for a whole month, and even now, the memory is as clear as glass. It started on a Friday. I was slumped in math class, doodling in my notebook, when my friend Jack leaned over with that mischievous grin of his. Jack was wiry, fearless, the kind of kid who'd jump into anything head first. "Sleep over at my place tomorrow," he whispered. "You in?" I hesitated. Sleepovers weren't my thing, too many unknowns, too little control. But before I could say no, he dangled the bait. "There's this abandoned hospital in the woods, Robertson House. You've seen it on Mr. Nightmare, right?" My ears perked up. I had. I'd watched YouTubers creep through its graffitied halls, heard the rumors of voices and bangs. I was hooked on scary stuff even if I didn't buy the paranormal hype. "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "Noon tomorrow. But if I die, you're telling my mum." He laughed. "Deal." That night, I got home after a tiring day and fired up my laptop. I couldn't resist digging into Robertson House. It was called that after some old doctor built to treat British soldiers back from the South African Boer War. Later, in 1908, it reopened as a treatment center for kids with tuberculosis. Then, for reasons no one seemed clear on, it shut down and was sold off in 2001. Since then, the internet buzzed with creepy tales, children's laughter echoing in empty wards, loud taps and bangs on the walls. I scrolled through YouTube videos of explorers poking around its ruins, their shaky cameras catching shadows and rust. I told myself it was all nonsense, but a knot tightened in my stomach anyway. Saturday afternoon, I pedaled my bike to Jack's house, the sun dipping low over Alton's quiet streets. We wolfed down fish and chips in his kitchen, barely chewing, too wired to sit still. His mum, a tired woman with lines etched deep in her face, set the plates down and said, "You boys heading to the town center later? Don't be out too long. Couple hours, tops." Jack winked at me. "Yeah, Mum, just the center. Promise lying to her felt wrong, but the pull of that hospital was stronger." We grabbed our phones and slipped out the back door as dusk settled over the town. 20 minutes later, we were at the edge of the forest. The trees loomed ahead, gnarled and twisted, swallowing the last light of day. Twigs snapped under our feet as we trekked deeper, our breath puffing out in the chilly air. The woods were quiet, too quiet. No birds chirped, no wind rustled the leaves. It was like all life had vanished the moment we stepped in. My stomach twisted, but Jack marched on, unfazed. "There it is," he said, pointing ahead. The trees parted, and there stood Robertson House, a hulking, decayed monster of brick and mortar. Tall grass choked its base, weeds crawling up the walls, graffiti splashed across every boarded-up window, except one, which gaped open like a dark wound. "It's worse than the videos," I whispered. Jack grinned. "Perfect, right? Come on, entrance is over here." He scrambled toward the unboarded window and climbed through with cat-like grace. I hesitated, then followed, scraping my knee on the sill. Inside, our phone flashlights cut through the gloom. The hallway stretched out, walls peeling with damp paint, cobwebs clinging to every corner. Graffiti screamed at us, "Get out!" in jagged red letters. Spider egg sacks dangled from door frames like grotesque ornaments. Jack laughed, pointing at them. "Check it, spider eggs. Crack one, and you're cursed for life." I glared at him. "Not funny, Jack. Let's just—" I stopped. At the end of the hall, a door hung half open, shadows pooling inside. I aimed my light at it, but it revealed nothing but darkness. Jack's eyes glinted. Bet you won't go in there, no phone, just guts. No way, I snapped. You do it. He rolled his eyes. Coward, fine, watch the master at work. He strode toward the door, switched off his light, and stepped inside. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I clutched my phone, heart pounding, telling myself it was fine. Then, a scream. Get in here! Jack's voice, raw with fear. I bolted inside, flashlight shaking. He stood frozen, staring at the floor. My light swept down, and I froze too. Inches from his feet was a pile of bird carcasses, stacked like some sick offering. Some were old, decayed to brittle bones, while others glistened, fresh, their feathers still slick with blood. What the hell? I stammered. Jack's eyes were wide. I didn't hear anything drop these. A thunderous crash erupted overhead, hooves pounding the ceiling, shaking dust onto our heads. We locked eyes, terror mirrored. We're leaving. Now, I said. But Jack shook his head, stubborn as ever. Wait, I want to see upstairs. Are you insane? I hissed. You heard that? Could be a squatter, or worse. He ignored me, darting toward a rickety staircase in the hall. He paused at the bottom, cupping his hands. Hey, he shouted. Anyone up there? We mean no harm. Silence. Then, a faint creak from above. I grabbed his arm. This is stupid. I'm waiting outside. He nodded, distracted. Fine, stay put. He ascended, the stairs groaning under his weight, while I retreated to the window and climbed out into the cold night air. Outside, I paced by the window, my breath fogging in the dark. The forest was a black void around me. I checked my phone, 11:47 p.m. I should have dragged him out, but Jack was stubborn as a mule. Then, sprinting footsteps echoed from inside, growing louder. Jack's face appeared at the window, pale as death. He vaulted out, landing hard. Run, he panted. Don't stop. I didn't question it. We tore through the woods, branches clawing at our skin, adrenaline surging. The hospital faded behind us, swallowed by the trees. We collapsed near a flickering street lamp in the town center, gasping. I grabbed his shoulder. What happened? Tell me. His voice trembled. Upstairs, there was a room, light under the door, where the footsteps came from. I opened it and... He trailed off, eyes distant. He'd seen a pentagram painted in red across the floor, ringed by melted candles, the air humming with static. He'd stepped back and froze. At the hall's end, 6 robed figures stood motionless, hoods hiding their faces, staring. They didn't move, just watched me, he said. I bolted. Occult? Ghosts? I didn't care. We swore never to tell a soul. But that wasn't the end. Back at Jack's, we huddled under blankets in his room, lights on, TV blaring a mindless sitcom to drown out the silence. I stared at the ceiling, trying to shake the night off. Around 2 a.m., something woke me, a faint tap, tap, tap at the window. I sat up, heart racing. Jack stirred, groggy. What's that? He mumbled. I peered out and froze. In the garden below, a shadowy figure stood, head tilted up, staring at the window. Its hood swayed in the breeze. Jack, I whispered. They followed us. He scrambled up, joining me. The figure raised a hand, holding a dead bird, its wings limp. It dropped it, turned and melted into the darkness. We're never going back, Jack said, his voice hoarse. I nodded, unable to speak. That night stuck with me, chills down my spine for weeks. Who were they? What did they want? I don't know, and I don't want to. I stay far away from those woods now, and I'd advise anyone to never let curiosity drag them into places like that. Some mysteries are better left in the dark.